I was interested in how it goes beyond that and talks about the less tangible benefits of cycling for a town or a city, or for an urban space, or for any space for that matter. And I think a couple of the speakers in the film talk about rediscovering the public space, redefining the public space, reclaiming some of it from cars. And there were some really interesting insights into how cycling, because of the way that people are out on their bikes, not inside a box of a car, they're more directly in contact with other people. They're interacting more with the environment and with others. And there was a nice phrase in there which spoke about expanding the narrative on cycling. Do you think that's something that the film is succeeding in doing, expanding the narrative?
Well, that is. I hope it does. It always is difficult to say if this works as a maker. I mean, this is something we try to do by layering, I think, 7 or 8 different narratives about cycling. I mean, it goes from the more well-known, as you say, or the qualitative or the hard factors we know. So like the economic factors and environment, but and then of course space is very important. Not only the quality, but also the amount of space. I mean, cycling doesn't take up a lot of space. Therefore, it is very convenient to have cycling as a way of transport. But then we try to look beyond this, and we think that the societal effects of cycling are also the benefits of that are also are very well, yeah, they're very big and not very good. I mean, they're easily overlooked, so it's not very well known. Something you talk about a lot because it's so taken for granted. But I think, I mean, I learned it when I go abroad, and I mean, when I was in Moscow, where the cars all have this blindfolded windows, and it felt really like there are only machines there. So it was really difficult for me to be there when I grown up in the cities where people interact with each other, and you know the people in the street and you know your neighbors.
Mm.
So I think it is something which is interesting for cities. It is what you want. If you want to have, it's like the Saskia Kluit, the general director of the Dutch bicycle union, the cyclist union, says, it builds on trust on a bigger scale, because people have to trust each other when they're on a bike. And because you trust each other, you will trust each other in different ways. I mean, so hopefully this will help people. I mean, although there's a lot of distrust, of course, in the Netherlands as well, but I think it really helps.
I was amazed at one of the sort of bits in the film was about a traffic light system which goes green for the cyclists when in both directions across a crossroads. So all of a sudden the lights go green for the cyclists and they all go, even though they're going in different directions and across each other. But the thinking is, because they're cyclists, they will be able to make those quick adjustments and make eye contact and read each other's movements, and they won't actually crash, which does seem to work.
Yeah, it does. And it actually is rather intimidating the first time you get across these crossings, which are in Groningen. There are lots of them there, but somehow you survive. And after doing it a couple of times, then you find out how it works. But it really, the first time you really think, what? Everybody's coming from all directions. This has to go wrong.
Speaking of surviving on a bicycle, one of the other things that struck me, and I know others have commented in some of the comments on Twitter and things who've watched the film, how few, in fact, almost nobody in the film is wearing a helmet or high-vis gear, whereas here most people would be. How do you account for that?
This is an interesting subject. I mean, most of the times in discussion, this subject pops up, and it's really. I think the thing about the Dutch approach is really that we think that the gains, because people don't have to wear special clothing and helmets, are bigger than the loss. So there's actually about, I think, half of traffic accidents are with cyclists, and so about half of the people who are killed each year, there are about 700 now, are cyclists. But we think because people don't have to wear helmets, there are more cyclists. And if there's more cyclists, then people are used to them, and then they look for them, and they regard them. So it's important to have this is really the effect of the sheer number. If you have more cyclists, then it's safer. And if people have to wear helmets, then less people will pick up their
because
bike.
that might be a deterrent, because they think they have to put a helmet on, special gear in order to get on the bike. So that's one or two more steps before they can actually jump on and ride.
Right. And the other thing is that some people say that it's better to wear a helmet inside a car because the risk of getting a head injury inside a car is much bigger than on a bike. The other example is that getting a head injury when taking a shower is much bigger than while riding a bike. And nobody wears a helmet while being in the bathroom. So.
And do those statistics, those statistics, when you look at the way cycling is arranged now in the Netherlands with the cycle lanes and the kind of the organised streaming of cycling in cities, you can kind of understand that it would feel quite safe. But I wonder here whether the same would apply. I don't know whether you've cycled here in London or somewhere like Reading or Oxford.
I did cycle in Glasgow the last time I was there. And yeah.
How did that feel?
It is, well, I don't know. I think that you feel that you're not an equal among the motorists. I mean, it feels almost as if you're secondary. And I think this is the most important. I mean, we learn this at a very young age. So in the schools, the children get cycle lessons, and they're taught to take their place and to be clear about your intentions, so other people notice. And that's something you learn. And if I cycle here, I can always pick out the tourists when they're on the bike, because they're much more shaky, and they don't feel as confident as the Dutch people cycling here. So I think there's two factors. It's actually it's something you get taught, that you have to be confident and that you can be. And the other is, of course, we take a lot of effort here trying to make the system as safe as possible. So it's true, yeah.
Another aspect of the tone of the film, there's a feeling of almost serenity watching some of the people cycling there. You see school kids cycling to school side by side and chatting as they're cycling along a cycle lane. You see a couple of ladies out for a ride on their electric bikes, also talking to each other. And one of the things you notice is that people are sitting very upright. They have, many of the Dutch bikes seem to be designed to sit upright and to sort of, if not converse with people around you, certainly look at them. Is that something that is, do you think, a particularly Dutch thing? Where did that sort of way of cycling emerge?
Yeah, well, actually, these bikes are an English invention, I understand, but they are very popular here in the Netherlands. And so it's always difficult to, if you want to cycle on a racing bike or on a straight bar bike, you really have to talk a lot to the Dutch, to somebody from the Netherlands, to tell them that it's a good thing because there's less wind. But no, people really like to sit upright here on their bikes, and I think it has really something to do with this social aspect. And you have got your hands free. I mean, you don't have to have both hands at your steering wheel all the time, so you can carry your stuff or whatever you want to do.
So it's a different posture, isn't it? It's a sort of sitting up and not crouching or leaning in, and yeah, it's sort of it looks more relaxed.
Yeah, and by that means you look over the car, so you can you actually, this gives you also a little bit of authority as a cyclist, because you're bigger than a car, so you can look over them. Not now with the SUVs, it's getting a bit more difficult, but But so that's, and you look into the eyes of the drivers, of the motorists, so you can actually communicate with them, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think this is something which is sheer luck, but I think it is a good thing that we do that. Yeah.
Yeah.